So today I want to address the strange attitude that Jehovah's Witnesses have sort of gained from the governing body and the higher forces about research. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses are told, especially when you start to study, that what you should do is research, right? They emphasize that Jehovah's Witnesses don't have blind faith. We don't just take things for granted like people in the churches do. The priest tells them something, they have no idea what he's talking about, so they just say, Amen, and they believe. Well, Jehovah's Witnesses say that Jehovah doesn't accept that kind of worship because it's not really in our hearts. The scriptures say we should serve God with our whole hearts, our whole minds, and our whole souls. Well, how can we do that if we're just parroting phrases that we don't really understand? It's not in our hearts, it's just in our brains and mouths, and that's not okay. So Jehovah's Witnesses and studies and young children are all required to research. Now, people kind of view this as some kind of like almost professional academic activity. We're all going to go and study now. We have our study nights. I study the Bible. I'm a Bible student. That's what they actually say. We're Bible students. And I remember watching a small clip where a brother from don't quote me on this because I can't even quote it myself. But I remember some brother said something about there's no need to go to university because coming to the meetings is just as good in the fact that we study and learn and have new ideas and whatever. Which, okay, he probably didn't mean that in that, kind of straightforward way. But it is a kind of thought. Jehovah's Witnesses are encouraged to study. And the interesting thing is, when you tell people who are sort of uneducated, let's face it, the Jehovah's Witnesses are based worldwide in over 240 lands, I think. And a lot of those lands are places like Africa, India, the South America, and those kind of countries where education is not normal. People don't go to college and university and stuff like that normally. People aren't concerned with GCSE results and stuff like that, your SATs results and whatever. It's a different world out there. Education, especially for girls and women, is seen as a complete non-priority. What do you need it for if all you're going to do is herd goats for your life? What do you need it for? So when it comes to Jehovah's Witnesses and education, we always, by default, consider Western countries, or places like Australia and New Zealand, where like people are more Western in their attitudes and civilized and whatever. Now, even in these congregations, obviously not to the extent of places like India and Africa and places like that, but people are still uneducated. I know plenty of people in my old Kingham Hall and other Kingham Halls where I'm not even joking, the majority of the congregation is severely uneducated. You can't even ask them a simple question about the witnesses without them getting it wrong. For example, the thought on the generation has been changed. Right or wrong, it's been changed. They've been taught that from the Kingham Hall platform. It was a big deal. This is the first time that thought has been addressed, and now it's actually been overturned, nullified, and a completely new idea has been introduced. So of course everyone was gaga about it. It was a talk of the hall for weeks afterwards. And my dad, oddly enough, who rather was an elder at the time, kind of had this disparaging attitude towards people whom he considered to be, thick, uneducated, they can't grasp the simple things. And I suppose he has a point in a way because he went up to a particular brother who is known for being very zealous on the ministry. He'll talk to anybody, and he always says stupid things. Like, for example, I think there was a watchtower that was talking about abuse, and he went up to a random woman and says, "Excuse me, do you enjoy being abused?" And of course the woman was like, get lost or whatever. And we all just sort of laughed like, he's super funny, he's zealous on the ministry, this brother. He talked to anybody about anything. He doesn't need brains, he just needs, zealousness. So anyways, my dad, to prove his point about people being uneducated in the truth, went up to this brother and just said, "So, what's your understanding of the generation?" As if this was like a new question. And the brother, predictably, repeated word for word the old thought, even though for weeks everyone had been harping on about this new thought, and it was like the new standard and everyone was like excited. And that brother went straight back to factory settings and started talking about the old thought. And that was a zealous brother, and he was in his 80s, and he'd been in the truth for a long time. And even he didn't have the brain capacity, or I don't know what it was, but he just couldn't grasp this new thought. But it's kind of important if you're teaching people on the ministry, especially if you're known for going out on the ministry a lot. You need to be teaching people the truth, because, as I said in an earlier video about the apostasy thing, Jehovah's Witnesses, or rather people who really believe in Jehovah and the Bible, and its commission to go therefore make disciples, we have a serious responsibility, don't we? We are out there not only taking parts in the issue of universal sovereignty, where it's literally Jehovah versus Satan, good versus evil. This is like, the most important thing in the world, literally, if you believe that. We are also responsible for saving lives. The Bible actually says that we are blood guilty if we mess this up. For example, if we don't bother preaching or whatever, we are actually blood guilty. It's not like a light thing we can just, get it wrong and who cares. This is people's lives that are in the balance. So, when it comes to facts, as I said before, it's our responsibility as lifesavers, if you will, to make sure that what we're telling people is fact and not fiction, right? Because if we tell people lies, they can't have a proper relationship with Jehovah, they can't be saved, and they're dead. Kaput. And it's our fault, because we were the retards who told them the wrong thing. And we're okay, because, we have faith, and Jehovah forgives us, and maybe we learn the truth later, and we just forget to tell them. And by then it's too late. So when it comes to research then, Jehovah's Witnesses are a bit strange, actually, because they keep talking about research. We go to the theocratic ministry school. We are educated. We have a spiritual feast. We are given knowledge. We have all these books in the libraries. If you have a library at Kingdom Hall, which I think they all do, to be honest. I think it's jammed full of books. The insight books, which are huge. The Revelation books. Several different types of Bible. King James Reference, which is another big concrete slab. The New World Translation, the Revised Version. All these like obscure versions of Bibles and whatever in various languages or whatever. And Jehovah's Witnesses believe that by digging into all this research, all these supplies for research, that they're doing a thorough job. But it's a little bit strange because at the same time, the governing body make it very clear that Jehovah's Witnesses, or rather people who want to learn about Jehovah, so that in effect means anybody who wants to research about Jehovah, studies, kids, people who are just interested or whatever. Because of course when they Google the name Jehovah, it comes straight up with Jehovah's Witnesses, because there's no other religion on earth that uses his name, which is one of the things that made me feel at the beginning that maybe I was making a huge mistake by accusing the Jehovah's Witness organization with being false. Because I'm thinking the same as everyone else. Well, Jehovah's Witnesses are the only ones that use God's name. Therefore, they must be real. Jehovah's Witnesses are the only ones that go on the ministry full time and make this a real deal. Well, okay, that must mean they're real. And if it weren't for the other things, I could be happy just thinking, fine, this religion must be true. But these other major things, I won't go into them all now, because honestly, when I started reading these things online about, for example, about the Freemason and Illuminati and stuff with Charles Taze Russell, which is, I dismissed as crap, as you do. You think, oh, come on, Illuminati, that's like from The Simpsons and stuff like that. Okay, yawn, National Treasure, Nicolas Cage, whatever, save that for Hollywood. I didn't know that his gravestone is not only in a Freemason cemetery, where all the main ones are buried, which in itself is a bit like dodgy. Anyway, his gravestone is actually a 7 foot tall, I think. Don't get me wrong with the measurements now. I'm pretty sure it was 9 feet across the base and 7 feet tall above his grave, in the shape of a pyramid, with things like the Eye of Horus, which is like obviously the Illuminati symbol, and stuff like that all over his grave. And Jehovah's Witnesses will inevitably flock there, because when they're in Pittsburgh, which I think that's where it is, of course they want to go and see the grave of C.T. Russell. He's our leader and he was the guy that started and all this stuff. And it's kind of cool. Even Bethel has, it's like a museum and whatever. And so it's like, when you start to research outside of the library in the Kingdom Hall, you start to see things which don't make any sense. In fact, they start to ring little alarm bells, and you start to think, yo, what's all this stuff? And of course, when you research inside the Jehovah's Witness publications, you don't find anything. And this is what I want to say about the research techniques with Jehovah's Witnesses. they make it very clear that Jehovah's Witnesses or anybody interested is to research where? Only within publications printed and approved by the Watchtower and Bible Tract Society only. No external publications, no people's opinions or thoughts from other religions or organizations or just from the public, no literature or anything from anywhere. We can only use what is on the website or on the old CD-ROM. And I mentioned the CD-ROM because when I used to do research for talks back in the day, you go on online because the Jehovah's Witnesses started to plug their website, didn't they? All of a sudden it was jw.org. They launched this new website, and then they launched the other website, the wall.jw.org, the Watchtower Online. And then they had all apps and things to go with that and whatever, and specific websites for whatever. But you are then directed to go, instead of on the CD-ROM like people used to, the CD itself that you had to order from the branch or whatever and have it delivered to your hall, you're now directed, young and old, male and female, elder or publisher, to go online. And they say this is easier because we want to spread the good news far and wide. And obviously if everyone has a computer, an iPad or a phone or whatever, we can log on to jw.org. There's no need now for PCs and these CD-ROMs. And that's cool, that's fine, that's more convenient really, because personally I don't have a PC. Not many young people do, I think, or I don't know. PCs are kind of dying out. People are kind of moving towards Mac computers and laptops and smartphones and tablets. Especially tablets, because you can get a lot of data on there. You can sort of do almost anything you can do with a regular computer if you just use it for basic things, and you can take it anywhere you want. Now, when you research online, as I try to do with talks, I noticed that anything pre the year 2000 couldn't be accessed online. You'd have the reference there with its little numbers and letters, but instead of being blue, so you can click on it and go to the link and, use that, it was greyed out. There was no link. So when you try to click on it, nothing happens and it's dead. And so what it's basically saying is, there is information, but you can't access it. And so you think, well, hang on a sec, where can I get this information from then? Because we've been told that the only place where you can research is with the online library. So, okay, well, how do I do this then? Manually. So the next thing you have to do to find out the information, say from a Watchtower or a book that was published in 1983, or one of the really early ones by Russell, in like 1933 or something like that. And this is like important stuff. Maybe you heard a rumour about this book. Maybe you want to use it for a talk or something. Maybe you just want to research about C.T. Russell just for personal stuff. So where'd you go? Well, the governing body and other people will no doubt say, well, use a CD-ROM. You can find all the old crap on there. Well, that's great. Except they are taking the CD-ROM away from people now. It's discontinued. It's now regarded, as rightfully so, as an outdated way of research. It's going the same way as the floppy disk. The only people that I know personally that use the CD-ROM even regularly or even have it in the house are elderly witnesses who don't know how to use, anything else. It was hard enough for them to use that. Or the old-fashioned types who don't really believe in, high-tech stuff like iPads and stuff like that. It's too complicated. They'd just rather stick with what they know. But all the younger people are starting to use the online library. In fact, anyone sort of beneath the age of, 60 or something is probably on there. I know elderly people in their 70s who are starting to use the website now. So what happens to all the CD-ROMs and all this information that's on there? Well, the society have always told us when it comes to outdated literature or, old books that we don't use anymore or things we have in excess and we don't need them, like memorial invitations that are out of date now, what do we do with them? Well, two things. We give them back to the Kingdom Halls and they send them away to be recycled, or we recycle them ourselves. So it's gone. It's destroyed. You can hang on to it if you want to, but honestly, over the years, with all the books and magazines and tracts and bits of paper that come out, it starts to accumulate. And unless you have some kind of industrial warehouse as your office, on the back of your house, where are you going to keep all this stuff? Nowhere. So people use a CD-ROM. But then they said, we don't need that anymore because we have the online library. So how many people have gotten rid of the CD-ROM thinking, finally, I can throw my old PC away. It's just taking up room. I don't need it for anything. I mean, my granddad, he only used his computer for the CD-ROM. That was the only thing he used it for. He was an elder, and that was it, and for email. And then he got the iPad. He started using that for email and for research. So the computer, the CD-ROM, and all that stuff was out the window. It was gone. So this is the problem now. If you have questions that you want answering, and you know that it's from a publication pre-2000, where'd you go? CD-ROM is gone. It's gone the same way as the dinosaurs. It's extinct now. So what else? Okay, manually then, the actual books themselves. Where can we find these? Well, if you're lucky, your Kingdom Hall may have a copy. But don't forget, with the vast array of books, I mean, again, unless your Kingdom Hall is warehouse size, I don't think it's going to have a library that extensive. It's not like a proper library, like Alexandria or something. It's only a small room that probably has the basics, like a spare songbook and different Bibles and whatever. So where are these books? Okay, I'll order one from the branch. You can't. They're discontinued. So you can't find one for love nor money. If you're super lucky, maybe eBay. Maybe in a charity shop or something like that, you might be able to find one. Or if an elderly brother or sister dies and, after they've croaked it, you may be able to go in their house and root around and see if they've got an old one. But apart from that, you can't get one. So now, in effect, that information is gone. It's disappeared. Now you can't use it to prove any theories or facts. You can't use it for a talk anymore. You can't use it to say to somebody, hey, did you know that Charles Russell was into astrology? And yet you publish that in Watchtowers and use it as proof for 1914. People are going to look at you and say, the magic word, it starts with an A. It rhymes with postate. It's apostate. They say, you're an apostate. You reference this crap from 1950 whatever. And how can you prove it? And the answer is you can't, because it's gone now. All you can do is reference scans that are available online. And who scans these things and puts them out there? Apostates. Therefore, it's been doctored. That's what they say. Anything that's from online, they claim that it's been edited or doctored or whatever. And how can you prove it's not? Even if you have proof it wasn't, they wouldn't believe you anyway. They want to believe that stuff that is weird or satanic or contradictory or shocking is simply untrue. Well, why not? How else are they going to deal with this information? What are they going to say? Okay, I believe you. C.T. Russell was a Freemason, therefore this religion is founded on satanic principles, therefore we should quit. They're not going to say that. Dear me, no way. For most people, being a Jehovah's Witness is not merely a belief system. It's not even a lifestyle, which is bad enough. It's actually some kind of career. It's something they must work at. They view it as something they've invested time, energy, resources in, they've sacrificed things for. They're not about to let that go. Ever. Not even if it was in their face. In fact, many witnesses have said to me before, and I kid you not, when I've asked them, even when I was a teenager, I used to ask these kind of questions, but back then, because I was, still zealous and whatever, they didn't really view me as an apostate. They just viewed me as annoying. And I remember saying to somebody once, what would you do, in theory, if the governing body came and said, hey, new system is cancelled, we got it all wrong, therefore, Armageddon really is the end of the world, no paradise for you, bye-bye. And Bethel was shut down and that was it really. They said, you know what? Even if it was proven that this entire religion was a lie, and I kid you not, someone said this to me. They said, even if this whole religion was a lie, I would stay in it anyway. And I said, why? If it's a lie? They said, there's no better way to live on earth. And they honestly believe that. And I was real scratching my head, even as a teenager, without any of these sort of thoughts really in my head at all. I accepted it was the truth. But that didn't make any sense to me. People who knew it was a lie would still stay in it just for the sake of this weird attitude that they think they are literally superior to everyone else and they can't possibly be moral unless they are in this organized... Yeah, you know where I'm going with this. So anyways, back to the research thing. Like I've said before in my video about apostasy, when it comes to research, Jehovah's Witnesses are strongly discouraged, in fact they are forbidden, from using any outside sources at all. In fact, it's always a little bit thrilling almost when Watchtower publications or books quote even Catholic sources like the Catholic Encyclopedia. I mean, of course, 99% of the time it's to discredit, that religion with its own, sort of hanging them with their own noose kind of thing. But at the same time, it's always a little bit thrilling when it's like, oh, a scientific journal is quoted here, or this Catholic book, or this whatever, this philosopher. It's almost as like we kind of think, wow, a worldly person is allowed to share their views. And the governing body, amazingly, have approved it. They agree. Wow. But then we come to accept that these kind of sayings and quotes and things are only acceptable if they've been approved by the governing body first. Which means that if we try and look for things, in the world and online and stuff, then we can't use it because it's not been approved by the governing body. They probably haven't even read this stuff. So we don't know whether it's legit or not. So just to be safe, disregard everything unless the governing body mention it. Which is like few and far between. And as has been proven plenty of times, quotes that the governing body use are out of context, which is another barrier when it comes to researching the truth. I mean, that brother, or that rather ex-brother from the XJW Critical Thinkers site, he made such a great point before. He said that when he used to work at Bethel, he shared a room, I believe is what he said, with one of the writing department people. And he and that guy used to discuss at length stuff about, writing, because of course you will. If you're there with the guy that writes the Watchtowers, of course you're going to talk about it. And he was talking with that guy about the illustrations they use. They're always like extreme. Like this brother, he walked across like, a desert filled with broken glass with no shoes on just to get to the assembly. And they always use these kind of illustrations to kind of guilt witnesses into working harder. If that brother can, jump into a volcano like Frodo to get to the memorial, then how come you lazy fat American or whoever you are, you can't even drive 5 miles up the road to sit in a hall for 2 hours and then go home? And of course everyone feels guilty, and they think of that brother who jumped into the volcano, and they think, well, I can do it. It's not a big deal. It's like a motivation thing. It's that same thing, the donkey and the stick. The stick is the punishment, the carrot is a reward. Donkey moves towards the reward and away from the punishment. And it's that kind of thinking, So that brother admitted, he said, you know what? We write these kind of like extreme examples and whatever for that purpose. Sometimes we don't tell the whole truth. And of course the now ex-brother said, what do you mean? And he said something like that. I remember he said the illustration of like a brother or sister in Africa who has to cross a lake or a river full of crocodiles to get to a meeting. And everyone thinks, oh my gosh, this brother or sister has had to, face life and death. This brother or sister has to be Tarzan to get to the meetings. And here I am, this lazy witness or whatever. I can't be bothered to drive. And of course, then we feel guilty and we go. And now the writing brother said something like, when it comes to these kind of illustrations, we leave out the parts where, if in truth we were to tell the whole thing, it would go something like this. In this village in Africa, everybody crosses that stupid river that's full of crocodiles every day. Little kids cross it. Old people cross it. It's normal. Everyone does it. Therefore, when brother or sister so-and-so cross it for a meeting, it's not like they've never done it before and this is a huge challenge. They would probably have to cross it anyway. They've probably crossed it 3 times a day anyway to go to the shops and back, or to see grandma. So going to the meeting, it's not exactly like they were risking life and limb for the first time, and this is like a huge sacrifice. It's not. So they deliberately take stories and illustrations and examples and quotes out of context to make it suit the aim of the publication or article. Therefore, how can you accurately research stuff when you know that it's been modified, it's been censored, it's been manipulated? Isn't this similar to living in like some kind of communist country like China or North Korea or something, and you have some kind of limited intranet, full of literature that's handpicked and carefully censored and whatever, and they say to you, hey, you can learn about the history of the world from China. Yeah, but it's our version of the history of the world. It's been strongly doctored. There are like whole sentences blacked out. But hey, that's okay. You can learn history accurately from this. But you can't. It's propaganda at the end of the day. That's exactly what propaganda is. It's taking, quote, information that may be true, maybe not, and it's using it for a means to an end. It's trying to tell people a message, do this because our evidence backs it up. Of course, they won't mention the evidence that disproves it because, that would be against their aim. So when it comes to research, the Jehovah's Witnesses, the organization, is very careful. It only wants people to read the information that has already been put there. Therefore, they know exactly what people are learning. When people ask questions, they can even think, I know exactly what publication they've picked that up from. And I already have the answer. Here's one I prepared earlier, because I've been using it every year on different people who've asked me the same question from the same book. So of course, if you start to bombard them with abstract questions from things you've looked up online or from other books or from talking to various people, they haven't got a pre-prepared answer. Oh no, what if they say the wrong thing? What if they unwittingly admit that what you're saying is right? You see this a lot with these YouTube videos of people who kind of spring themselves onto witnesses who are doing the trolley work or, whatever, or coming to the door. And they ask him a question that's kind of abstract or even a straightforward one. I watched one today that said some old guy looked like a bit like Santa with a beard, Santa after a diet maybe. Asked some guy on the trolley, do you believe that Jesus Christ and Michael the Archangel are the same person? And for some reason, the brother, he was a young brother, he looked, fairly intelligent and whatever, he kept refusing to answer the question. He wouldn't say yes or no. He just kept saying, I don't want to talk to cameras. I don't want to talk to cameras. You should research the Bible. Well, I'm sorry, but even if I was still in the truth and on that trolley, if some geezer asked me, do you believe that Michael the Archangel and Jesus are the same person? I would say, yeah. Because that's what they're taught. That's what you believe. It's the same as, if you say, do you believe Jehovah is the one true God? You just say, yeah. So why was that guy so scared of saying yes? What's the worst that could happen? Who cares if he's talking to a camera or not? It's actually worse to do what he did and dodge the question, because then he looks weird, he looks dodgy, he looks, cagey and suspicious. It's better just to say yes. If the guy starts to rant, then you can legitimately say, get lost, you're harassing me or whatever. But until then, why was the guy so reluctant to say yes? Is it simply because he's not expecting this kind of thing? Someone from the world springs on him with a camera and an upside down cross and starts talking about things, and his brother's scared because he doesn't know where the conversation's going to go. They always seem to get scared when you start quoting things from Russell's era or from other religions or sources, because they don't know how to answer it, because they don't have pre-prepared answers. It's that simple. So personally, I think that's one of the main reasons that Jehovah's Witnesses, especially active ones who are on the ministry, are told to only research what's already there, And it's like, it honestly does scare me when I read stuff about the Illuminati and, crap like that. And the letters that were sent to Hitler and the German Convention in 1933, I believe. Stuff like that. It really is scary. Because that's not the kind of thing you expect to unearth. Well, not me anyway. This is like Pandora's box. You're told, don't open it. Don't open that box. You're a Jehovah's Witness. Just believe that whatever's in there is bad and leave it alone. But it's funny because the Jehovah's Witnesses know more than anyone, really, of what a father-child relationship is like. Because they always use it, as an illustration. Jehovah's the father, we're the children, blah, blah, blah. So when it comes to that kind of relationship, if you tell a child, do not open that mysterious, tantalizing box, don't open it. I'm not going to tell you why. I'm not going to tell you what's in there. I'm not going to answer any questions. I'm going to be horribly and frustratingly vague and, dodging questions. Do not open that tantalizing box. And I'm going to go now at the room and I'll leave you with that box. Well, what do you think the kid's going to do? The kid's going to open the box. So what can they say to Jehovah's Witnesses that will prevent them from doing that? Well, easy. Threaten them with guilt. Or with some kind of legitimate threat like, you will lose God's approval. Now, come on. Every Jehovah's Witness is scared in their boots of losing Jehovah's approval. We don't want to do anything that will earn us Jehovah's disapproval. No matter how direct or indirect, no matter how vague or no matter how intense or, just a little bit of disapproval. Jehovah's Witnesses don't want that. They'll do anything to prevent it from happening. So when it comes to lifting the lid off secrets and the backstory, the dirty secrets of the organisation, the stuff they prefer to forget and bury and just, let it fade away into history. Of course people want to find out the secrets, even just innocently, even just not even realising the importance of what they want to find out. So of course they get told, do not look. And of course everybody wants to look. So then they say, you will have Jehovah's disapproval. you will be an apostate. So everyone is scared off for good. I mean, it's even scary for me, even though I know it's all rubbish, it's still scary to look at so-called apostate stuff, because you kind of think, oh my days, this is Satan's words. And then you read it and think, hang on a sec, these are photographs and clips from the Watchtower. These are direct clips. That's a picture of Charles's grave. It's easy to prove. Just go to Pittsburgh and have a look. If it's not there, it was fake. I was duped. If it's there, it's real. Oh my gosh. So this is how Jehovah's Witnesses are educated anyway. I think it's kind of important because to me it's another defining point that says that a religion or organization is false. Because one of the main things that a cult does and all these kind of religions is withhold information from people and discourage people from going and researching themselves. And as somebody wise once said, people who don't want you to research or ask questions have something to hide. And it's usually not very good, is it? People don't want to hide good things. What's the point? It's always bad things, embarrassing things, things that they don't want people to know for whatever reason. People guard these fiercely. And none so fiercely as the Watchtower. They actually put your everlasting life into question just by asking questions. That is pretty serious, to condemn somebody to death at Armageddon for merely asking a question, which is what they do when they determine that you're an apostate and they disfellowship you. They actually refer to you as an enemy of God, which means then, in theory, if you get disfellowshipped on Wednesday and Armageddon comes on Thursday, what's going to happen to you? Well, the Jehovah's Witnesses have just told you that you're an enemy of God for asking questions. Therefore, when it's Armageddon and it's, slaying the enemy time, you're on a hit list. So that's not very good, is it? So it's like stuff like that. It makes me honestly convinced that stuff like that, even though it's not like specific doctrine or whatever, all these add up to the warning signs that point towards a false religion. If they really have the truth, they should know that it is concrete and bulletproof. You could say what you like. You could say the moon is made of cheese. And you could have a million reasons why you think it's made of cheese. But if you know it isn't, how likely are you to suddenly start believing it is full of cheese? Well, you're not going to, are you? You may find it interesting. You may find it amusing. You may be curious and wonder why they got that thought. But at the end of the day, when they're done talking and they go, you just sort of chuckle to yourself and think, well, I know it's made of rock. I know it's like, a big rock that circles the earth. Therefore, I'm not concerned. If anything, testing the truth makes it stronger. Because then you know that it really is bulletproof. I mean, that's why they test cars and things, racing cars. What do they do with this beautiful, it costs hundreds of thousands of pounds to produce. It's a beautiful racing car. And what do they do with it? They smash it up. Why do they do that? To make sure that when it's really out there and a real living person is in it driving it around, that person isn't going to die as a result of neglect from the people making the car. So what do they do with it? They test it at different speeds. They make it turn on sharp corners. They test it in wet surfaces and dry surfaces. They try braking sharply, braking over long distance. How long do the tyres last? Blah, blah, blah. Now, of course, they have to sacrifice quite a few cars to do this. But it's worth it because somebody's life is in question. And to me, it's the same with the truth. Yeah, you're going to have to smash it up quite a few times, You're going to have to put it to all sorts of tests, no matter how brutal it may seem. But why? Because at the end, you want to have a product that is, as far as you could tell, it's unbeatable. It's going to handle everything you could throw at it because you've already thrown it at that car before, the truth before. And at the end of the day, it really is, a person's life that is in the balance here. It's our lives because we believe in it. We have to answer to Jehovah directly. And it's the people that we're talking to. Because even if we consider ourselves to be ex-witnesses or apostates or whatever, we still talk to people. And like it or not, the way we talk to people influences their behaviours and actions, right? The way they think. And of course, thinking leads to behaviours and that kind of thing. And it becomes a lifestyle. It's that serious. So that means that we have to really acknowledge that we have a lot of responsibility when we put our ideas out there. And that's why it's wise to have disclaimers and say things like, I don't know where that information came from, don't quote me on it, blah, blah, blah. Because it's so easy to influence people and to make them believe something that you're not even sure of, But it's their lives at the end of the day. If Jehovah deems that somebody has to die because of our misinformation which govern their lives, the Bible says that we are blood guilty. which is quite serious. So I think the same when it comes to the Watchtower. They are blood guilty when it comes to people whose lives have been ruined as a direct result of their teachings, like the 1975 nonsense. People gave up marriages, children, their homes, their careers, their pensions and everything. People were depressed. People left the truth, committed suicide and everything because they couldn't believe that the Watchtower had misled them for so long. And then the Watchtower, instead of conceding and apologising and being like sincerely upset at its own stupidity and arrogance, it actually put the blame on people who believe them, and then quickly brushed it under the carpet and moved on. We are being enlightened, the light is ever brighter. Forget about the things in the darkness now, we're moving on. And then they forgot about all the people they left in the darkness to die. And that's terrible. So yeah, this is kind of the point that I make these podcasts in the first place, because it's like, when it comes to what we believe and what we tell other people, we really need to think about things, It's like that other channel, critical thinking. That's what it is. Critical doesn't necessarily mean negative. It's not about criticizing. People always put it in a negative way. Oh, people were criticizing me at work today. And we automatically think that means that they were saying bad things based on observations of things of you. But really, the word criticize just basically means to look at something, sort of take it apart and form an opinion and talk about various aspects of that thing. So it could be positive criticism, like, you did a speech at work today and you had good pace and, you brought valid points out, you had good grammar and punctuation, blah, blah, blah. That's positive criticism. On the other hand, you can pick out the bad points about it, and that's negative criticism. So when it comes to the Bible, to the Watchtower, to our thoughts and feelings, to the thoughts and feelings of other people like Russell and all those people, we should feel free, as people who want the truth, to critically analyse these teachings, good or bad. Look at the Jehovah's Witnesses. What is good about them? Because it's not all bad. Yes, we can praise them and say they use Jehovah's name. Great. That's really important. They preach the good news. Great. They publish literature in languages that have never even had literature published in that before. Brilliant. But then we have to look at the bad side, as well. And then we have to think pros and cons. Does this point towards a false religion or a real one? And that's when we make our informed decision, and our lifestyle becomes changed by that. So, I don't know, I would encourage everybody who listens to this podcast. I mean, I can't believe that people have already listened to my other ones, because it's like, you upload something, you think, maybe I'll get two views, and that was probably by accident or something, and that's it. But I've been super happy with the views and a few comments and private messages I've received and everything. That's really, really cool, because I'm not looking to start a new religion or be a leader or anything like that. That's why I stay anonymous, aside from other obvious reasons. But I just want people to criticize things balanced, maybe I'll make a podcast about the good things that I've learned from witnesses. I don't know. But right now, it's like the bombshell has hit, the Pandora's box is open, and I'm sort of overwhelmed with all the things that are true that I've never even looked at before. So when it comes to you, listener, whoever you are, wherever you're from, I would encourage you to do the same thing. And also, if you're an elder or Jehovah's Witness looking for, ammunition or whatever, shame on you and get lost. Because I'm sick to death of people like you. You're spies, you're stalkers, you're looking at people's videos and feeds, you're pretending to be disfellowshipped or whatever, just so you can rat out people. Get a life. Seriously. Allow people to have their own freedom of thought and whatever, and concentrate on your spirituality. I'm sick of these people. It's crazy that ex-witnesses are still afraid to mention their names, their ages, where they're from, and just be open about their views, because everyone is secretly afraid that some witness person somewhere is going to rat them out. And sadly, it happens all the time. They think it's their duty. So if you are in fact here for that purpose, I can tell you where to jump from and where to go, so you better do that. And to everybody else who's here for curiosity's sake, or to learn something, or to agree or disagree, thanks for being here, and continue doing your critical thinking. Peace out.